When I first met Lauren, I thought she was everything I'd ever wanted. She had this sharp wit, a contagious laugh, and the kind of charm that made you feel lucky just to stand next to her. I'm Tyler, a mechanic. It's not flashy, but it's honest work, and I've built a good life for myself. Lauren worked in public relations at a high-profile firm, and while our worlds were different, I thought we balanced each other out. I believed we were happy. After 2 years of dating, I proposed. It was a quiet moment, just the two of us, and she cried as she said yes. I was over the moon, but looking back, I realized the cracks started to show not long after that. Lauren began making small comments about my job, subtle digs about how I should have aimed higher, or how I wouldn't get some of her work jokes. I brushed them off, thinking she didn't mean any harm. Then her job started taking over her life, or so she said. Late nights, networking events, and work dinners became a regular thing. She often talked about her boss, Ethan, with a little too much enthusiasm. "He's such a visionary," she'd gush. I didn't think much of it at first. Everyone admires a good leader, right? But soon, it felt like she admired him a bit too much. Still, I chalked it up to stress and her career ambitions. But as time went on, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. It wasn't just the comments about my job or the constant mention of Ethan. It was the way she'd hide her phone, the nights she came home smelling like cologne that wasn't mine, and the way she avoided talking about the future as much as she used to. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but the doubts were there, creeping in, eating away at me. Something wasn't right, and deep down, I knew it. I just didn't know how bad it really was. The first real red flag came about 6 months after our engagement. Lauren started talking about Ethan, her boss, like he was some sort of genius. "Ethan's got this amazing vision for the company," she'd say. "You'd really like him, Tyler. He's so down to earth." At first, I didn't think much of it. I mean, who doesn't talk about their boss now and then? But soon, it felt like Ethan was coming up in every conversation. Her late nights at the office also became more frequent. There was always some urgent project or last-minute client meeting that kept her out until 10 or 11 p.m. When she did come home, she'd be glued to her phone, smiling at messages and texting furiously. If I asked who she was talking to, she'd shrug and say it was work stuff or her coworker, Ashley. I didn't want to be the overbearing fiancé, so I let it go. One evening, though, she came home wearing a new necklace. It was subtle but elegant, not the kind of thing she'd buy for herself. When I asked about it, she said it was a team gift from Ethan to celebrate a successful campaign. Something about her tone felt off, but when I pressed her, she snapped, "Why do you always have to question everything? Can't you just trust me?" That shut me up for the moment. But the little things kept piling up. She started making fun of my work more often, especially when her coworkers were around. Once, when we bumped into one of her colleagues at a coffee shop, she introduced me as Tyler, my fiancé who's great with his hands. The guy chuckled, and Lauren laughed too, as if it were some kind of inside joke. I felt humiliated, but I didn't want to cause a scene. Then there was her phone. Lauren had always been private about her phone, but lately, it felt like she was actively hiding it. She'd turn the screen away when I walked into the room, or she'd take it with her to the bathroom, something she never used to do. I started to wonder if I was being paranoid, but deep down, I knew something wasn't right. The moment that really got me was when I overheard part of a phone call. She was in the kitchen, talking in a hushed tone. I couldn't make out much, but I caught her saying, "Don't worry, I've got it under control. He doesn't suspect a thing." When I walked into the room, she jumped, quickly ending the call. "Just Ashley freaking out about a deadline," she said with a forced smile. The pit in my stomach grew bigger every day. I didn't have hard evidence, but the signs were all there. Something was going on, and I was starting to feel like an outsider in my own relationship. The truth came out in the ugliest way possible. One night, Lauren left her laptop open on the kitchen counter while she was in the shower. I wasn't snooping, it was just sitting there. A notification popped up from Ethan, and curiosity got the better of me. The message said, "Last night was incredible. Can't stop thinking about it." My heart sank. I opened the chat, And there it was, weeks of messages between Lauren and Ethan. Flirty texts, inside jokes, and vivid descriptions of their alone time. She even mocked me in some of them, calling me clueless, and saying how she wished I could get a real job. I sat there in disbelief, my hands shaking. When Lauren came back into the room, I was still staring at the screen. She froze when she saw my face, then quickly tried to shut the laptop. "It's not what it looks like," she stammered, but it was exactly what it looked like. That was the moment everything fell apart. I didn't even let her touch the laptop. I stood up, holding it open, and said, "Explain this, Lauren. Explain last night and why you're calling me clueless to your boss." Her face went pale, but then, in true Lauren fashion, she shifted into full defense mode. "You're overreacting, Tyler. It's just a joke. We're friends. Nothing more," she said, crossing her arms like I was the one who had done something wrong. "Friends? Friends don't spend the night together. Friends don't trash their fiancé to each other," I yelled, my voice cracking. She rolled her eyes and muttered, "God, you're so dramatic." Her dismissiveness hit harder than the messages themselves. When I pushed her further, she snapped, "Fine. Yes, we've been seeing each other, but it's not serious. It's not like you and I were perfect either. Maybe if you had a better career or understood my world, I wouldn't have to look elsewhere." That was it. The woman I was supposed to marry just blamed her affair on me. I was too stunned to say anything else, and she used my silence to storm off to the bedroom, slamming the door like she was the victim. A week later, Lauren insisted I accompany her to her office party. "It'll be good for us," she said, as if pretending everything was fine would magically fix it. I didn't want to go, but something in me needed to see her in that environment, to confirm what I already knew. So I agreed. The party was held at an upscale venue, filled with her polished co-workers sipping expensive cocktails and laughing like they had no problems in the world. Lauren looked stunning, of course, but the sight of her arm brushing against Ethan's as they talked made my stomach churn. She introduced me to a few people with that fake smile plastered on her face, calling me Tyler, my fiancé who keeps things running smoothly. It was another jab, but I held my tongue. Then came the moment that broke me. During a toast, Ethan praised Lauren for her hard work and leadership. Everyone clapped, and then someone asked Lauren about me. "Oh, Tyler? He's a mechanic," she said, laughing. "He fixes cars while I handle PR crises. Opposites attract, right?" Her co-workers laughed. Ethan laughed, and I felt the room close in around me. I'd never been more humiliated in my life. That's when I made my decision. I walked up to her, right in the middle of the crowd, and said, "You think this is funny, Lauren? Making fun of the man you're supposed to marry? Well, guess what? You don't have to anymore. We're done." The room went silent. Her face turned bright red as everyone stared. "Tyler, don't do this here," she hissed, grabbing my arm. Pulled away. "You already made this decision for me when you slept with Ethan," I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Gasps rippled through the room. Then, for the final nail in the coffin, I turned to Ethan and said, "Enjoy her, man. She's all yours." And with that, I walked out, leaving her standing there, stunned and alone in the mess she created. The adrenaline carried me all the way to my truck, but as soon as I sat down, the weight of everything hit me like a ton of bricks. I couldn't drive. I couldn't even think straight. I just sat there in the dark, replaying the humiliation, her lies, and the looks on everyone's faces as I called her out. A part of me wanted to go back inside and yell at her some more, but another part of me was just broken. I stayed in the parking lot for what felt like hours, trying to wrap my head around everything. The anger burned hot, but beneath it was this hollow ache I couldn't shake. How could the woman I loved, the woman I wanted to spend my life with, tear me down so easily? I wasn't perfect, but I didn't deserve this. No one does. When I finally made it home, I found myself surrounded by reminders of her. Her shoes by the door, her jacket on the chair, even her stupid coffee mug in the sink. I wanted to throw it all out, but I just stood there, paralyzed. The person I thought I knew had been lying to me for God knows how long, and I felt like a fool for not seeing it sooner. She didn't come home that night. No calls, no texts, nothing. I figured she was either too ashamed to face me or too busy crying on Ethan's shoulder. Either way, I didn't care. Or at least, that's what I told myself. By the next morning, the anger had eclipsed the sadness. I wasn't just going to sit there and let her get away with this. I deserved better, and she deserved consequences. First, I gathered all her belongings. Clothes, makeup, shoes, everything, and stuffed them into garbage bags. Then I drove to her office. It was a weekday, and I knew the whole team would be there, including Ethan. I walked into the lobby, bags in hand, and told the receptionist, "I'm here to drop these off for Lauren." The receptionist looked confused, but she called Lauren down. When she arrived, her face turned pale as a ghost. "Tyler, what are you doing here?" she asked, her voice low, like she thought she could control the situation. "Just returning your stuff," I said loud enough for anyone nearby to hear. "Thought you might want it, since you'll be staying with Ethan from now on." I dropped the bags at her feet and turned to walk out. But I wasn't done yet. I stopped, turned around, and added, "Oh, and by the way, Lauren, you might want to check your laptop. I forwarded your little chat history with Ethan to HR. Pretty sure that kind of team bonding breaks a few rules." Her jaw dropped, and for once, she didn't have a clever response. Ethan appeared at the top of the stairs, clearly aware of the commotion, and all I could do was laugh. "Good luck with her, buddy," I said, pointing at him. "You're gonna need it." And with that, I walked out, leaving her to deal with the fallout. It wasn't the prettiest way to handle things, but damn, it felt good to take some control back. After that showdown, Lauren didn't bother coming back to the house. She sent her sister to pick up the last of her things a few days later, which was fine by me. I didn't need to see her again. I blocked her number, unfollowed her on every social platform, and told all our mutual friends exactly why we were done. Some sided with her, claiming I should have kept things private, but I didn't care. She humiliated me first, and I wasn't going to protect her image. A week later, I heard through the grapevine that Ethan had been suspended pending an HR investigation. Apparently, forwarding their explicit chats to his boss was enough to cause a stir. Lauren wasn't fired, but her reputation at the company took a major hit. Word spread fast about her affair, and from what I heard, even her so-called friends at work started distancing themselves. As for me, I took some time to process everything. I poured myself into work, taking on extra projects at the shop to keep my mind busy. It wasn't easy, though. Nights were the hardest. Sitting alone in a house that used to feel like home, replaying every moment of our relationship, wondering how I missed the signs. I thought about reaching out to her once or twice, not to get back together but to demand answers. How could she betray me like that? Why didn't she just leave if I wasn't enough? But I stopped myself. What good would it do? I knew the truth. Lauren wasn't who I thought she was, and I was better off without her. It's been a few months since everything went down, and I can finally say I'm starting to feel like myself again. Cutting Lauren out of my life was the best decision I've ever made, even if it felt like my world was crumbling at the time. I've learned a lot through this mess. About trust, self-respect, and knowing when to walk away. The pain doesn't vanish overnight, but every day gets a little easier. I've been spending more time with friends who actually care about me and even started going to the gym, something I'd always put off when I was trying to keep up with Lauren's chaotic schedule. My work has been my sanctuary, and I'm proud of what I've built for myself, even if it's not glamorous. At least I know it's honest. As for Lauren, I heard through mutual friends that things didn't work out with Ethan. Shocker, right? She tried reaching out to me once, leaving some pathetic voicemail about talking things through. I deleted it without a second thought. She made her choices and I've moved on. If there's one piece of advice I'd give to anyone in a similar situation, it's this. Trust your gut. If something feels off, it probably is. And when someone shows you who they really are, believe them the first time. You deserve someone who respects you, who sees your worth, and who doesn't take you for granted. Looking back, I'm not even angry anymore. I'm grateful. Lauren's betrayal opened my eyes and set me free. Now I'm finally living the life I deserve, and I'll never settle for less again.